Never apologize for being clever. Never feel guilty for seizing what's rightfully yours. If you hesitate, others won't. I reclined in a sumptuous leather armchair within the magnificent banquet hall, idly swirling a glass of vintage Bordeaux. The room buzzed with elegantly dressed guests, their crystal flutes raised high, exchanging rehearsed pleasantries and superficial praise about this momentous occasion. A flawless wedding, a radiant bride, a masterful conquest. Amanda, my precious daughter, commanded attention at the hall's heart, resplendent in her pristine wedding gown, an exclusive creation from an elite Manhattan designer. That dress represented more than mere fabric and jewels. It symbolized achievement, my achievement. A victory crafted through meticulous planning and unwavering patience. This lavish celebration cost upwards of $200,000, from silk-decorated tables to fine champagne imported directly from French vineyards. The towering ice sculpture centerpiece caught and scattered light from the overhead crystal chandeliers. Each element was deliberately chosen. Everything aligned perfectly with my vision. And the sweetest part? The entire affair was financed using Catherine's funds, my husband's first wife's money. A fitting compensation for all I had weathered. It brought me satisfaction. Society loves to label women like me as avaricious, calculating, merciless. But have they ever considered what I sacrificed to reach this position? None witnessed the countless days I endured, the subtle jabs from the family, the patronizing glances from his daughter, who believed her Mitchell bloodline granted her superiority over me. No, they fixate on the outcome and rush to condemn. Gentle chatter drew me back to reality. Across the room, my husband, Mark Mitchell, lifted his glass in celebration. He appeared content. I recognized the lingering traces of remorse about the money still haunted him. But I'd managed that aspect. I always knew precisely how to convince him of the righteousness of our decisions. Men of Mark's caliber are simple to influence when you master the art of telling them exactly what they long to hear. My phone suddenly buzzed. A notification. From Unia. I opened the message to find an image. How pathetic. She'd forwarded me a photograph, not of the celebration, not of her father, but of financial records. A momentary unease flickered through me, but I maintained my poise. Did Unia truly believe some numbers could unsettle me? Such youthful naivety. I placed my wine glass on the nearby table and surveyed the reception hall again. The guests remained blissfully unaware of the message I'd just received. None suspected the intricate game unfolding beneath these polished smiles. I allowed myself a knowing smile. Show me what you've got, Unia. Show me your best move. I had already triumphed. And absolutely no one, not even Unia, could strip away my victory. Life taught me one fundamental truth early on. Power isn't bestowed freely. You must seize it with unwavering determination. My origins were far from privileged. I grew up in the suffocating confines of a desolate Texas town where aspirations crumbled like autumn leaves. My existence was defined by endless cycles of destitution and hardship. My mother toiled as a housekeeper, sacrificing her health to provide for me. My father? Nothing more than a violent drunk, lost in his own demons and destructive tendencies. The hunger pangs still haunt me, as do memories of my mother returning home, eyes swollen from tears, the harsh scent of cleaning products embedded in her graying hair. Her constant refrain echoes, "Delphine, stay in your place, be content with what you have." But I refused to mirror her fate, to become another forgotten woman, worked to exhaustion, then discarded like yesterday's newspaper. From an early age, I vowed to craft my own destiny. The moment I turned 18, I fled Texas, armed only with a threadbare suitcase and an identity yet to be forged. Survival meant embracing whatever opportunities arose, serving drinks in seedy establishments where men's tips came with predatory gazes, manning phones at a soul-crushing insurance firm, even modeling for hair salons just to maintain an appearance of affluence I couldn't truly afford. The rules of success became crystal clear. Raw talent wasn't enough for women to succeed. We needed to weaponize every advantage at our disposal. Though I lacked conventional beauty, I possessed penetrating eyes, a disarming smile, and, most crucially, the ability to shift between harmless confidant and formidable adversary at will. My path crossed with Mark Mitchell at a prestigious medical charity function in Manhattan. I was 28 then, establishing myself in pharmaceutical sales. He stood as a beacon of success, a renowned surgeon carrying the weight of his deceased wife's memory in his sorrowful gaze. Catherine's legacy preceded any introduction. The media had painted her portrait countless times, Catherine Mitchell, the epitome of grace and brilliance in medical circles. A paragon of virtue and accomplishment. Her perfect image became my opportunity. I approached with calculated patience. Mark wasn't a man to be rushed into romance, especially while wrestling with grief. Instead, I orchestrated casual encounters, positioned myself strategically, and embodied the role of the understanding friend. My strategy avoided obvious flirtation or desperate attention-seeking. I presented myself as his intellectual equal, a woman sharp enough to engage meaningfully, yet intuitive enough to recognize when silence spoke louder than words, when comfort should be offered through presence rather than platitudes. I became his anchor in a world of uncertainty. I made him believe that I comprehended his deepest sorrows, carefully assuring him that I wasn't attempting to erase Catherine's memory. I was simply present, offering unwavering friendship. Gradually, methodically, I wove myself into the fabric of his thoughts. Our courtship unfolded over 24 months before Mark's proposal materialized. It required endless patience and precise calculation, but I knew that when the moment arrived, it would cement a victory impossible to reverse. When I first crossed the threshold of the Mitchell estate as Mark's bride, I felt every evaluating glance. His relatives, his social circle, and, most significantly, Unia. The young woman regarded me with unveiled suspicion. I understood her perspective. Unia Mitchell epitomized privilege personified, a life cushioned by wealth, where desires transformed instantly into reality. She'd never experienced deprivation, never needed to demonstrate humility. In her eyes, I represented an interloper, a fortune-hunting opportunist attempting to claim her mother's carefully constructed legacy. But Unia overlooked something crucial. Catherine Mitchell lay in her grave. And now I wielded the influence. I hadn't arrived to play the role of benevolent stepmother. I refused to tiptoe around Catherine's ghost. I'd fought relentlessly for this position, and I wouldn't allow some entitled heir with a razor-sharp tongue to dismantle my achievements. So, I began establishing my dominion. I cultivated Mark's belief that Unia required maturation, that she couldn't perpetually dwell in the past harboring resentment. I planted seeds of doubt he'd never dared acknowledge. She lacks appreciation for family values. You must exercise stronger authority. While I'm not trying to replace Catherine, perhaps this family needs renewal. Unia's just being obstinate. She'll eventually recognize I'm not her adversary. And Mark absorbed every word. Systematically, I dismantled Unia's world. Initially, her family's standing. Subsequently, her father's confidence. Finally, her role at the family's medical practice. She could rage, resist, despise me with every fiber of her being. It proved inconsequential. Because I understood the fundamental truth, in this power play, whoever commands the trust of the authority figure emerges victorious. Want to know the most effective method of elimination? It's not through obvious confrontation or heated disputes. Those approaches lack subtlety and sophistication. The most masterful strategy involves creating circumstances where the target chooses to depart voluntarily. And that's precisely how I handled Unia. From day one, Unia's animosity was palpable. She made no attempt to mask her hostility, eschewing even basic courtesy displayed by her father and relatives. Upon my arrival at the Mitchell estate as Mark's wife, her eyes radiated pure disdain. "Are you sure about this, Dad?" Those were her initial words to Mark when I entered the residence. No pleasantries, no welcome. I merely offered a knowing smile. I recognized her archetype instantly. She embodied the privileged child, sheltered from life's harsh realities, never experiencing the necessity to struggle, living with the assumption that her world would remain unchanging. Such individuals invariably crumble when someone arrives to claim what they've taken for granted. But Unia failed to grasp one crucial detail. I wasn't someone who would quietly step aside. I initiated my strategy gradually. Carefully placed comments to Mark. Have you noticed how Unia seems increasingly detached? I believe she's unable to move forward from the past. Perhaps some distance would help her develop independence. Initially, Mark dismissed these observations, but I understood the art of cultivating doubt. Steadily, I shaped his perception until he viewed Unia as the source of discord, too unyielding, too resistant, too self-centered to embrace her new family dynamic. Then I escalated my approach. I persuaded Mark that Unia's position at the family clinic had become untenable. I simply think she might flourish more independently. The patients might feel uncomfortable with his daughter as their nurse, considering the family connection. A different workplace might better suit her professional growth. Though Mark wavered initially, he ultimately concurred. With that decision, Unia lost her first significant connection. I anticipated fierce resistance, expected her to fight tenaciously to maintain her position. But I had overestimated her resolve. Her departure proved surprisingly effortless. Following her removal from the clinic, she maintained weeks of silence toward me. No confrontations, no arguments. She simply withdrew, reminiscent of an injured creature seeking solitude. I observed from afar, anticipating some reaction, but none materialized. Unia offered no resistance. She didn't attempt to reclaim her position. She chose retreat. Did this outcome bring me satisfaction? Not precisely. I harbored no hatred for Unia. I simply refused to let her presence eclipse mine. I desired her quiet disappearance, without drama or upheaval. She complied perfectly with my wishes. But my agenda remained incomplete. The core issue extended beyond Unia. It concerned Amanda's position within the family. Amanda, my daughter, deserved to inherit everything Unia once possessed. I'd raised her single-handedly, enduring countless hardships to ensure she'd never experience the deprivation I'd known. I began orchestrating Amanda's integration into the Mitchell family. I guided her toward medical studies, ensuring Mark's approval. I arranged intimate family gatherings where Amanda occupied the seat beside him, absorbing his surgical narratives with perfect attention, displaying impeccable appreciation. Mark's gaze toward Amanda transformed, carrying the same pride that once belonged exclusively to Unia. I meticulously crafted comparisons whenever he spoke of her. She mirrors your qualities, Mark. The same drive, intellect, and determination. I believe she's destined to be your successor. Unlike Unia, Amanda truly grasps the essence of medicine. Mark never challenged these statements. His silence spoke volumes, confirming my carefully laid plans. When Unia finally relocated from the Mitchell estate to her own residence, I deliberately avoided the farewell. My presence wasn't necessary. Victory was already mine. Her position within the family had dissolved completely. From that moment forward, I knew she would never again pose a threat to my plans. Everything aligned perfectly. Unia's departure marked the beginning of Catherine's gradual erasure from our lives. Amanda, my precious daughter, emerged as the Mitchell family's crown jewel, sophisticated, brilliant, and brimming with potential. Only one task remained, ensuring Unia's permanent exclusion from our lives. Financial control had been part of my long-term strategy. Upon marrying Mark, I recognized his trusting nature, his disinterest in monetary matters. Catherine had managed everything before, and after her passing, he simply allowed things to drift aimlessly. I presented my suggestion delicately. Someone needs to manage these affairs. Catherine's accounts can't remain dormant indefinitely. Mark agreed without hesitation. His trust in me was absolute. Systematically, I restructured the finances, consolidating control under my authority. I maintained my humble facade, continuing as the devoted wife. Yet internally, I knew I was methodically claiming everything Catherine had left behind. Then I uncovered Catherine's secret savings account for Unia. Alone in the study, I examined the figures on the screen. The sum was considerable, Catherine's lifelong effort to secure her daughter's future, even in death. How ironic. Catherine, despite her intelligence, had foolishly believed mere money could shield her daughter from my influence. The power to withdraw these funds rested entirely in my hands, backed by all necessary documentation. So I acted. Methodically, I transferred every cent from Catherine's account to a new one, registered in my name. I executed this gradually, spreading the transactions across months, ensuring each movement remained inconspicuous. No suspicions arose. Why would they? I'd carefully cultivated an image that placed me above such actions. I channeled those funds into creating the most spectacular wedding celebration of the year for Amanda. This wasn't merely another high society event. I envisioned it as a statement, an occasion that would resonate in people's memories for years to come. I orchestrated the most opulent hotel booking in the city and enlisted an esteemed designer for Amanda's bridal gown. Every detail, from the exquisite floral arrangements to the curated gourmet menu, exemplified perfection. Cost was no object, because I wasn't the one bearing the expense. That knowledge brought me the deepest satisfaction. I relished imagining her reaction, knowing that the funds she'd meticulously saved to safeguard her daughter were now financing premium champagne and extravagant cuisine, delicacies Unia would never experience. Victory was mine. I had claimed everything that once belonged to Catherine, transforming it into my own. Amanda's wedding unfolded flawlessly. I commanded attention from the center of the celebration, absorbing the endless compliments and admiring gazes. Mark delivered a touching tribute to his daughter, expressing his immense pride in the woman she had become, highlighting how she was preserving the family's distinguished legacy. And Unia remained absent. Her invitation was never extended. She had been systematically removed, as though she'd never been part of their world. That evening, I received an unexpected message from Unia. It wasn't verbose, neither threatening nor accusatory. Just one image. Upon opening it, ice coursed through my veins. It was a bank statement. The very account I had systematically drained. I maintained my composure initially. Placing my wine glass aside, I drew a measured breath. The gathered guests remained oblivious to this development. None suspected that while I savored my triumph, Unia might have uncovered something significant. Yet I refused to succumb to anxiety. No. I had anticipated such possibilities. Perhaps Unia had traced the financial movements. But what of it? Everything remained under my control. I possessed Mark's trust. I wielded influence. What leverage did she have beyond numerical figures on documentation? I allowed myself a knowing smile as I tucked my phone away. Show me your hand, Unia. Let's see what you're capable of. I was certain of my victory. Or so I foolishly believed. I remained blind to the fact that I had unwittingly walked into Catherine's long-laid snare. I had always envisioned my potential downfall as something dramatic, a fierce showdown where I could face my adversary directly. Instead, my undoing wasn't through direct confrontation. It stemmed from a seemingly minor oversight, an aspect I had presumed was firmly within my grasp. 3 days following Amanda's wedding, the tide began to turn. That morning remains crystal clear in my memory. I sat in the kitchen, enjoying my preferred coffee when Mark entered. His usual warmth was absent, no smile, no gentle kiss. Just silence, and an envelope in his grip. I lowered my coffee cup. "What's that?" I inquired, striving to maintain my composure. Mark hesitated before responding. He placed the envelope on the table surface and pushed it in my direction. My gaze fell to the sender's details, Marcus Thorne, attorney. An unsettling sensation crawled along my vertebrae. With trembling fingers, I unsealed the envelope. As my eyes traversed each line, my pulse began to race uncontrollably. Financial investigation request. Account freeze order. Violation of Catherine Mitchell's will. Impossible. No. This simply cannot be real. I raised my eyes to meet Mark's. The familiar trust in his gaze had vanished completely. "Surely you don't believe this?" I attempted a light chuckle, trying to dismiss it as a simple error. There must be some misunderstanding. Delphine. His tone was carefully controlled, restraining something deeper. "You accessed Catherine's savings without family authorization. You used those funds for personal matters. You mean Amanda's wedding expenses?" I attempted to regain my footing, shaking my head. "Surely you understand Catherine would have wanted her daughter's day to be perfect? The recipient of the funds isn't the issue here. Mark slid another collection of papers toward me. The violation of Catherine's will is what matters. And now, everything requires investigation. My fingers clutched the table's edge desperately. No. Years of careful positioning, meticulous planning, ensuring Unia's disappearance, securing everything for myself, all of it. And now, everything was dissolving before my eyes. I bolted from the kitchen to my private office. I needed to verify the accounts to comprehend the situation fully. Upon accessing the banking portal, a message materialized. Your account has been frozen by court order. Initial panic surged through my throat. I immediately contacted my personal attorney. His opening words hit like a sledgehammer. Delphine, you need to prepare yourself. Prepare for what exactly? I snarled through clenched teeth. The investigation extends beyond Catherine's account. They're examining all accounts, yours and Mark's. Your personal finances are under scrutiny too. The phone nearly cracked in my grip. No. Every step had been calculated. Everything had been executed perfectly. Then, unbidden, Catherine's voice emerged from my memory, words from an old recording I'd once overheard Mark playing. Delphine will attempt to control everything. She believes she's clever, but she's unaware of how thoroughly I've prepared. Catherine. She had anticipated this all along. 2 days passed before Amanda's message arrived. Mom, what's happening? She forwarded a link, a news article detailing a financial fraud investigation, with my name, Delphine Mitchell, emblazoned across the headline. My stomach twisted into a painful knot. Amanda wouldn't betray me. She was my flesh and blood. She understood that every action I took was for her benefit. But my calls went straight to voicemail. For the first time in decades, I felt something slipping through my fingers' control. I expected Mark to stand by me. He didn't. That evening, he entered my office, his expression harder than steel. Delphine, we need to discuss legal matters. I'm retaining separate counsel. What are you saying? I retreated a step. I'm saying if you're innocent, you'll need to prove it. With complete transparency. My chest constricted painfully. This wasn't my Mark. This was someone viewing me as a criminal, not his beloved wife, but a suspect. That's when reality struck. I had lost. I remained in the living room as darkness enveloped our mansion in deafening silence. My phone buzzed incessantly. Attorneys, fair-weather friends, former sycophants now distancing themselves. I ignored them all. My eyes fixed on our wedding portrait hanging on the wall. My image. My confident smile, my determined eyes. The portrait of a woman who once held the world in her grasp. Now, everything had crumbled. But surrender wasn't in my nature. If they believed I would collapse under pressure, they had gravely miscalculated. I gaze out the window of my modest apartment, phone clutched in hand. My reign has ended. Gone are the sprawling estates. Gone are the extravagant soirees. Gone are the envious glances from women who coveted my lifestyle. Everything's vanished. Amanda maintains her silence. Mark's divorce proceedings are underway. My finances are restricted. My legal team scrambles to preserve remnants, but the truth is clear, I've lost it all. Yet surprisingly, I'm not shedding tears. I'm not wallowing in despair. Because I anticipated this possibility. Perhaps you expect remorse? That I'll humble myself, admit defeat, and plead for mercy? Never. I stand by my choices. I did what circumstances demanded. Given another chance, I'd follow the same course. Since childhood, I learned one crucial lesson. This world shows no mercy to the powerless. I witnessed my mother's endless toil, only to be discarded when she could no longer serve a purpose. I observed countless women like her, the kind, the patient, the believers in love and loyalty, crushed beneath society's heel, betrayed by their partners, abandoned without a soul to rely on. And I swore I would never become one of them. When Mark entered my life, it wasn't love that drew me in. It was his position, his influence, the security I desperately sought all my life. What happened with Unia wasn't theft. I merely claimed what was rightfully mine. I don't view myself as the antagonist. I'm a survivor, nothing more. And if this attempt failed, I'll discover another path forward. They label me wicked. But consider this, Am I truly deserving of such judgment? Or perhaps I'm merely a product of a society that has consistently treated women as commodities, leaving us no choice but to fight tooth and nail for survival? I fought. I emerged victorious. Now in defeat, they stand there, mocking, reducing my story to a cautionary tale about the consequences of avarice. Such irony. I know Unia believes she's triumphed. She recovered her mother's fortune, earned her father's validation. She gets to wear the crown of virtue, while I'm branded as the villain. But there's one truth Unia fails to grasp. Pure goodness doesn't exist in this world. We're all participants in the same power play. The only distinction? I embrace my true nature. From my small apartment's balcony, I watch the city below, phone powered off. Life continues its relentless pace, indifferent to my downfall. I've lost everything. Yet fear doesn't consume me. I can read your thoughts clearly. You're reveling in my downfall, convinced I received my just desserts, that this outcome was inevitable. But pause for a moment. Have you truly grasped this narrative? Or are you simply playing moral judge, content to cast Unia as the heroine and me as the villain? What crime did I commit? I fought. I seized opportunities. I protected my child the only way I knew. And yes, I lost. But have you considered what shaped me into who I am? Or did you automatically assume villainy was my birthright? Am I truly wicked, or simply a woman fighting for survival? Does society automatically villainize women like me for daring to claim what we desire? Is greed always destined for punishment? Is Unia truly the righteous one? Or just another player in this grand game? Share your thoughts below. Which side do you support? Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more compelling stories ahead. Because remember, true heroes don't exist in reality.